Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Ramos, and today we're going to be talking about vulnerability response, vulnerability grouping, and strategies. Our topics today are the why, grouping methods, the remediation task table, risk calculators to a small extent, remediation task creation, and key considerations along with a very short demo. So, the why. As vulnerabilities come in, we want to make sure that we understand what they are and who they need to be assigned to. So, in order to do that, we have to understand our landscape of our environment and then come up with a key strategy on how we can be most effective in getting those vulnerabilities to the right groups. Right, so this is going to play a huge part as an admin or a vulnerability admin on the focus areas that you need to focus on and make sure that you have the appropriate stakeholders involved. So when we talk about grouping methods, there's two grouping methods that we're going to utilize. Option one, my personal favorite, the old school method there, is just remediation tasks. And then option two is going to be watch topics. And that's going to be, I don't want to say more advanced, just more new school when we talk about workspaces and just being able to have a newer, not necessarily a newer build, but utilizing newer features. Okay. So the unified remediation task table is a new table, and I'll let you read through the slide here, but we want to make sure the key points is that it doesn't extend from the tasks, right? So that's kind of a big deal, and we're going to be able to utilize that a little bit more effectively as vulnerabilities come in from different areas, infrastructures, containers, applications, hardware, everything. And we're going to utilize this in a little different way than we were utilizing it before. So, just as a side note, I threw this in here because I think it's important, is the rollup calculator util script. And we want to make sure that we understand when this runs and what it's doing. So, from a 15-minute to a 30-minute to every couple hours, the severities are going to run and this utility is going to run. So what I'm trying to get at is that vulnerabilities come in at a specific time. These jobs and scripts run at a certain time. So you need to understand that there's going to be some overlap in processing of scheduled jobs, okay? So that's going to be the key point, is that when you're coming up with your strategy, you need to be able to realize when things run, how long it takes for those jobs to run, and then be able to ensure that the risk scores are either updated or that they run at the appropriate time. So remediation task creation can be done through three ways. You can do it manually, you can do it filter or filter groups. And if you've created one, you realize that they're pretty easy to create, but very complex in what you can do with them. And from a strategic point of view, you want to make sure that you understand, okay, so from what's coming in and then who it needs to go to. And I like to start from a funneled approach. Let's get everything in, then let's break it into large chunks and then analyze those large chunks to then create smaller chunks, kind of what we do with classification rules, just to be able to filter them down if CMDB is not where you need it to be from a maturity state. But this is taken under the assumption that your maturity is where it needs to be, and you can then create remediation tasks very easily and effectively. Key considerations are workshopping, right? Let's get the people that need to be involved, the key stakeholders involved, and get them in early so that we can ensure that we're sending not only the right tasks to the right groups, but also the right communication to those groups. So having workshops and being able to lay out your strategy and then get input is going to be the most beneficial project that you work on, so that you come through and say, okay, if Windows servers need to go to this particular group, let's map that out. If it needs to come at different times, so let's just say you have a follow the sun item, you can then in turn to say, okay, if it's in this region, it needs to go here. Having all that mapped out is going to save you a ton of time on the back end, or having users upset because these vulnerabilities or these tasks don't need to go to that group and then get reassigned. All right, let's have a short demo. So for the demo today, we're going to quickly create a remediation task rule for Apache web servers. If you've taken the class, you did something similar to this, but I wanted to go ahead and just show you and then talk about it as an admin or from an admin point of view. All right, so this is my developer instance here. I'm going to go ahead and go into my remediation tasks. And to speed things up, I went ahead and created the remediation task rule for Apache web servers. Wait for that to come up. So as you're creating rules and you're seeing specific groups that need to get these vulnerabilities together and then sent out, I like to think about from an enterprise, okay, who's responsible for what? So if you have web servers in your environment and you know that a specific group manages that, okay, that makes it easy, right? I'm going to group those up and I'm going to send them off. And here's where you're going to do it or modify it, right? So here's my rule. Here's the name, Apache web server, task for Apache the web server team, right? So these are my conditions. It's a configuration class, item class is web server, and or web server or Apache web server. I'm going to send it to the assignment group, okay? And in order to, when you're finished with these, create it, reapply it, and then what you want to do is check to see if that job completed. You'll get a little bar at the top up here that says running, and then you can come over to the remediation tasks and create this little filter here. It says, okay, I created them today. Here the active are true, short description, I just said Apache, and here are all the ones that we created today. All right. So this is just a quick way you can go in, check to see if your job ran, and then in turn make any modifications and rerun it. So in summary, we went ahead and talked about some of the strategies for remediation grouping, as well as some key considerations and best practices. So what I want you to remember as the vulnerability administrator is that our responsibility is to receive those vulnerabilities and make sure they get to the appropriate group. So it's important that you have those key stakeholders at a meeting and you understand the requirements as well as your ability to give feedback on how we could make that happen. Talking to the appropriate teams to make sure that CIs are updated so that you know where they are or who belongs to them and the groups associated to them. For more information, please see our docs page, and thank you for the time.